Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Exude Human Capital's webinar series. And I suppose, Ro, this is the last webinar, official webinar of the summer months for
Mm.
2026. True?
Okay. The last
Right?
summer webinar. Okay. Yeah.
And what better time to talk about changing lanes for growth because nothing changes when summer is over, right? Nothing changes. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to people who are joining us for the first time, and welcome back to those who have joined us for webinars before. I'm Allison DeFlorio, and I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Exude Human Capital. And I'm with my favorite co-host, Romaine Jones-Wise, who's a senior consultant with Exude. She is a change management expert, and she also happens to be a road tripper extraordinaire. Hence, the topic of today's, or the theme, I should say, of today's program around changing lanes for growth. Good morning, Ro.
Good morning, Allison. What a way to set up for success. Very excited to be here for today's conversation.
I'll tell everybody, I'll share a story actually about the origins of this program. It was probably toward the end of last year, Ro and I were talking about, travel plans and this and that. And I'm not kidding that Ro is really a road warrior. Every weekend she's got like a 6, 8 hour, 12-hour trek. And she plans for the expected, she plans for the unexpected, and then there's still unexpected that she didn't plan for that she manages through. But when we were talking about road trips at the end of the year, we were saying, gosh, isn't this a lot like organizational change? You can have the best of intentions with the goal of where you're heading as an organization, of how you're going to grow your team, and you map out your plan, and then things happen. And some of them you thought, oh, maybe that could happen. Some of them come completely out of left field. And others just kind of happen, and you have to real in the moment figure out your strategy to keep yourself organized and motivated to get through it, and also to help lead others on your team through it. So today we're going to talk about some strategies using the analogy of a road trip on and driving styles as to how you can align yourself, align your team for what's ahead so that you can be successful. A couple of housekeeping tips before we do introductions and get into our agenda. This session is being recorded, so we will send out, as always, a link to the recording post this session. Please share that with people that you think may benefit from this content or weren't able to attend today. Your questions matter, so feel free to type in your questions, and Ro and I will do our best to address any of those during the time we have today. If we can't, please feel free to reach out. You'll see our contact info on the last slide. We welcome those conversations. We have them all day long. And even if it's just you looking for a thought partner to bounce off some ideas about change you may be going through at your organization, we would welcome those calls. So, without further ado, let's get into some quick intros. Again, some of you know us. My role in the organization is really to talk with business leaders day in and day out and HR professionals to help them think through HR solutions, strategies, and tactical action plans to help them move through change and a host of other types of HR issues. I'll turn it over to you, Ro, to share a little bit about your work in this space and some of the
Sure.
issues you bring to the table.
Happy to be with you all this morning. I am Romaine, better known as Ro or Lettuce. If you've been here before, you've heard that joke before. But I work as a senior consultant with Exude Human Capital, and I am kind of boots on the ground with our clients as they deal with change management, as they're navigating the nuances of all of the things that need to transpire. So helping be thought partnership for leaders, mapping out tactical strategies, giving best practices, helping with communication strategies, managing the conflict that arises with change management. I've become the conflict whisperer. It's a gift, I believe. Just kind of getting to the root cause of what's happening and giving, enhanced communication status so people aren't just being politely rude to each other, but also really getting to the crux of if I need to apologize, apologize. If I need to do something differently, adapting, and then making sure that we are still having conversations around accountability and constructive feedback, all while supporting the mission and vision and values of the organization so that people are not just doing the work, but also excelling at the work. So that's me in a brief
That
snippet.
is you. That is so you. So as we think about change, I'm going to venture to guess, I'm going to go out there on a limb. I don't think there's anyone that's listening today that is not experiencing some sort of change, whether it is professionally in your organization, personally, combination of both. We are in, and I don't even think I'd like to call it a phase. I think it's just a new norm of constant change. And it really was, um, it snowballed after the pandemic, which in a positive way forced us to think about doing things differently. I think some of us may say sometimes the pace is so quickly that it's hard for ourselves or those we lead to to stay strong and to stay focused and to to stay refreshed and energized to continue to forge ahead. When we think about the types of things we're facing that we don't have control over. There's generational change, right? That's natural evolution. We've got all these different generations in the workplace. We have the boomer generation retiring at record rates, although some of them are hanging around a little bit longer. And we have X and Y generations stepping into leadership roles and bringing their perspective and their life experiences to how organizations should run. So there's a little bit of a rub there and differences of perspectives and work experiences. We certainly are seeing economic change. We have AI disrupting the workplace in a good way, in a challenging way, in a frustrating way, and at a pace that none of us have ever experienced before. There's global disruption that's impacting people economically, and the job market is tricky, right? So we don't really have uh, we don't really have a basis for what the job market is doing today. It's not as predictable as it used to be, so that can create some change in the workplace. There's social change. Certainly, you can't turn on the news, turn on the radio or the TV without hearing about what's happening socially. And AI is changing things socially as well. How we work, how we communicate, how we interface, how we find information. And then the nuts and bolts of it's August. In a few weeks, we will be in September, post Labor Day, back to school. And for those of you that are still working towards getting people back to the office, you will be faced with that change as well. I know some organizations are back. Some of them have made the decision to stay remote or hybrid, but some of them are still struggling to embrace a culture of back to the office. So with that in mind, when we were thinking about this program, this visual came to mind. Now, if there's anyone on the call that is from New Jersey, this probably is a familiar sight because this looks like just about every intersection that you would see in New Jersey. And what I think it describes, and Ro, you can chime in here, is on any given day in any organization, we're in a lane. We start out the day and we're in a lane. And during the course of that day or month or year, we have to identify in advance when we have to move. We have to identify whether or not we're in the right lane, in the wrong lane. How far do we have to go before we're exiting? Where is that turn? And and this is just this analogy for what it feels like when you're behind the the wheel and you're moving at a pretty good clip and you've got to make these multitude of decisions in real time. Ro, what does this mean to you?
This is the picture of what it's like to just continue success. So when I see this, I see the highway, I see the open road, which is my favorite because that's like the smooth stretches where we can, put the cruise control on and just have significant stride and move toward our goal or our destination. But then there are also places in this picture where there's probably some really rough terrain, where there are potholes or bumps or rough patches or those speed skid marks that kind of jolt you to wake you up if you start to drift a little bit before you get to the toll plaza. I'm sure we all know which ones I'm talking about. But then in addition to that, there are all the different drivers. There are all the different people who are going either in your same direction or in opposites direction that you have to navigate with and kind of make sure that you are being intentional about how you engage from lane merging and speed. And you have to kind of interface with all the different drivers. Everybody drives differently, their unique skills, their unique perspectives, and taking turns at the wheel, especially if you have other people in the car with you, is a great way to balance a long road trip so no one gets burnt out. So taking turns at leading or driving is key for especially long road trips so that you're not exhausting yourself trying to get it all done. But my favorite thing is, I'm sure somewhere on this picture, there's a rest stop. And the rest stops are usually my favorite places. You meet some very interesting people, you hear some great stories, and sometimes you come across some of the best food that you may ever experience, like from a place that might be a hole in the wall that makes the best barbecue in North Carolina. I had that experience this past weekend.
That's great. And I heard you say a couple of things. You said I think you said everyone's driving style matters. And in the context of this conversation, we're talking about how can leaders prepare themselves. However, much of what we talk about today applies to everyone in the organization. So at any given point, someone in the back seat's going to have to take the leadership role and spell you for a bit because you're either going on vacation, you're out of the office, or you need a break. So as we move through the content today, think about driving styles as it applies not just to yourself, but to those you lead. And with that, let's talk a little bit about your leadership driving style. Ro, walk us through this.
So think about your driving style on your busiest day. And in the chat, you can put your response. How would you best describe your leadership driving style on a busy day? Are you the speeder who is pressured to produce results quickly? Are you the navigator, the strategic person always thinking 3 steps ahead? Are you the cautious driver? So you're mitigating risk and keeping compliance in mind. I need to follow the rules. I need to make sure we're doing the speed limit, not going above. Or are you the emergency responder? So dealing with constant employee relation issues, competing priorities, and role overload. Which one do you identify with the most? And you can put your responses in the chat. We would love to see the different driving styles. I will speak to mine on a busy day. I'm probably the speeder because I'm feeling the need to kind of get results out quickly or deliverables out quickly to clients, making sure people have what they need. But on a typical day for me, I would say I'm more of the navigator slash cautious driver. I'm trying to think ahead, trying to make sure we stay compliant and do all the things correctly. But when I'm under pressure and it's a busy day, I'm definitely a speeder. Allison, how about you?
I'm definitely the cautious driver. But like you, I also, and on a regular day or good day, I'm a navigator. But I'm a navigator because I'm a cautious driver. And Ro, when we were talking about this presentation, I was talking about my experience, not too long ago on the New Jersey Turnpike, where I'm on in the wrong lane, knowing not realizing that I have to be in the opposite lane for an exit. And I have a tractor trailer in front of me, a tractor trailer behind me, and a tractor trailer next to me. And we're going at like 80 miles an hour. And I'm like, oh,
Oh my
why didn't I think this through? Why did I get in myself in this situation? So I'm really the cautious driver. I try to stay away from the big trucks, but sometimes the big trucks just find you. And then we have to figure out strategies to get away from them. what are some of our let's see what some of our
Oh,
folks here are saying.
oh, this is comical. The speeder or the pedestrian about to get ran over. Wow, Kim. I think we can all
Yeah.
relate to that analogy. I think we can all visually understand what you're speaking to right there.
Yeah, we
Uh,
have I'm the emergency responder, but would love to be the navigator. How can I become the navigator? I appreciate that one. Uh,
yes.
Another navigator.
And we have a cautious driver to make sure that we're moving ahead in the right way. I appreciate the cautious driver who's trying to make sure we're managing risk and compliance. This is great. To the person who asked the question, how do I become a navigator? It comes with time. It's kind of getting to the point where we've put out all of the fires and we can kind of get to open road and kind of just cruise. That's usually where the navigator opportunity happens, and or you delegating some of the responsibilities to free time up so that you have time to think strategically and think three steps ahead. So there's a combination of things. You can either pass the wheel off to someone else to handle the emergent things and deal with strategy, or kind of get the emergent things resolved and give yourself time. Allison, what would you say about becoming a navigator?
Well, I think time definitely helps. I also think developing your team matters because the more that you can delegate to perhaps and not just the tactical things, but things that somebody else can do and somebody else can learn from, the more you are freed up to focus on what are two or three steps ahead instead of being in the moment constantly putting out fires, right? Or constantly mitigating risk. I mean, if there are HR professionals on the phone or on the call, you're always mitigating risk. However, if you can have others that are keeping the eye on that ball, that frees you up to start thinking a little bit more strategically. Easier said than done if you're a shop of one or a shop of two and it's a busy organization. However, it can be done.
Mhm.
So, I think the goal here is oops, what happened? Is to become an effective driver, regardless of your style. What are the things that we know that will help you be an effective driver in your role in organizational change?
So if we think about it in three facets, it's really knowing your lane, adapting to traffic conditions, and respecting traffic rules. When we translate that into the workplace, knowing your lane means understanding the goals and responsibilities clearly, understanding what it is that you need to accomplish, keeping your skills and knowledge up to date, which also means that we have to make time for professional development. Like we have to take the time to read an article, to attend a webinar like this with Exude Human Capital, to be up to date on compliance things, best practices, and that in turn goes to regularly investing in your learning and self-improvement. And then making sure that people on your team have this same understanding. They understand their goals and responsibilities. They're keeping their skills up to date, and you are investing in their self-improvement and development. The key with adapting to traffic conditions is being flexible and adaptable. Nothing on the highway ever stays the same. Nothing in the workplace ever stays the same. We have to be able to adjust and adapt and be flexible. The key is to kind of understand the approach that needs to happen. We don't want to get any road rage, merging of lanes and disruption in organizations. Adapting to traffic conditions is kind of understanding where people are, understanding the needs and the changing circumstances, and proactively getting in front of that so that people can help navigate the obstacles and still understand what is expected of them. As expectations change, communication should change. People should know. There shouldn't be any guessing. If you think about traveling on the highway, you always see posted um, speed limits. And you will find that if the speed limit is changing or something is changing, you get notification ahead of the changing zone. Even though some of us may not pay attention to it, I've had a couple of camera speeding tickets on 95 recently because I didn't pay attention to the changing from a 65 to 55 construction zone. But I've learned that lesson now, and I am very intentional about when I drive through that stretch before you get to the Maryland state line, that I slow down and know that even if they're not doing construction anymore, I'm not sure what the speed limit is in that zone, so I'm still going to be cautious and navigate differently. And then respecting the traffic rules, understanding that accountability is a part of leadership. Having those conversations, making sure people are doing what they say they're going to do, and not taking on all of the work yourself. I have an organization that I work with, and I'm working with some leaders right now because they find it's just easier to do the work versus holding the staff member accountable for the work, because having some of those conversations can be challenging and they somewhat feel confrontational, but I'm trying to give them the tools and resources to identify the actions, behaviors, and observations that they can speak to, so it's not an attack on anyone personally, but making sure to respect deadlines, follow process, and maintain professionalism and the values of the organization that speak to how we interact with one another in a respectful way. So
And
that's
I just want to share kind of two real life examples of groups we're working, two completely different groups that we're working with currently. We talk about adapting to traffic conditions. You know, we said sometimes they're predictable, sometimes they're not. We have two organizations, both of whom's leaders just left. One planned, one unplanned. They have interim leadership in place, and there is a process. The missions of the organization haven't changed. The goals of the organization haven't changed, but the leader has changed. Therefore, people are reacting in ways that you would expect. Who do I go to? What else is changing? Is my job safe? Is anybody else leaving? Even though that was never part of the plan, it's what as Ro alluded to. That's what goes on in people's heads if you don't get ahead of it, address the changing needs or circumstances, communicate more frequently. You may not have as much information to share, and you may have no information to share, but communicate that there have been no updates. And as soon as you do have updates, you will share them. So that is, that's adapting to an unforeseen traffic condition, planned or
yeah.
unplanned.
One thing that's important that I think we need to speak to, when we're dealing with change management, a lot of times leaders don't take a moment to kind of check on themselves. Or in this case, we say check your mirrors. Because what is happening is you, as leaders, are absorbing organizational stress, you're trying to manage emotional labor. You're carrying the weight of a lot of this, especially if you're in middle management, because you're having these two-way conversations with senior leadership and the individuals that report indirectly to you. And if you don't have answers for them, it can feel very overwhelming. So it's very important that you take the time to kind of check your mirror and make sure you are tending to yourself before attending to others. It's like the airplane mask, that they tell you put your mask on before you put somebody else's on. You got to make sure that we're taking the time to really um gauge our emotional response, our emotional intelligence, because as leaders, you are technically the GPS of your groups. And if your GPS is off, it's going to constantly reroute you to do things, and you're going to go in circles if it's not gauged correctly. So making sure you take the time through uncertainty to kind of take a moment. It doesn't have to be extended. It doesn't have to be long. It could be a quick glance in your mirror, but really assessing how you're doing before you're trying to be supportive of your team in a way, and not taking on unnecessary emotional burdens of other people. We are called to lead. It's not our responsibility to carry everybody all the time.
I would also suggest, in the absence of checking your mirrors, what could happen is road rage. If you
Mhm.
don't take the time to kind of assess how you are feeling and diffuse your own emotional reactions to change before engaging with others, that can build up over time. And that's where we see those outbursts, not your best moment, that can impact. the team morale, it can impact trust, and it's just one of those things that we have to be able to self-manage. And Ro, I loved your point about middle managers because I do think that they really do get they get crunched from bottom up and top down, and they carry a lot of stress. So being able to engage with them and have conversations and also share these tips and tools and techniques with them to help them manage their stress levels uh, is very, very helpful. Does anyone have any suggestions or can you share in the chat um, things that you have done as a leader to help others check their mirrors in times of change or in times of organizational stress? Feel free to type that in and we can learn from others' suggestions. So then, Ro, you get into this place of merging. Uh,
Merging the
my least favorite thing to do, particularly in New Jersey, because the merge lanes are super short and you just kind of
you
sometimes feel like you're closing your eyes and gunning it and hoping
gotta
for the
gotta
best.
gotta 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 go for it.
Not
Um,
always the best organizational strategy, but sometimes it's all you can do.
Sometimes you just gotta hit the gas and pray you don't hit anything. But the merging strategies and when you think in best practice with driving, they translate into the workplace. What should you do when you're getting ready to merge? You should assess your environment, signal early, match speed with the traffic, look for the gap to find a place to fit in, yield to oncoming traffic, avoid sudden movements, stay calm and be patient, and communicate with other drivers. All of these things for all the drivers on the call. This all makes perfect sense. When we think about it in the workplace, though, we're really being intentional. Assessing your environment, knowing what's happening within your organization is going to be huge. Knowing what departments are kind of working on, what projects are currently happening, what compliance things are coming up. As you navigate change on top of all of the things that still need to happen, you need to kind of know the environment. The signaling early comes back to the communication. Communicate your intentions clearly and in advance, whether it's a new idea or requesting assistance or giving the team the heads up to prepare for them, and making sure you respond effectively. So don't just communicate once and then go silent. If there's conversation or questions that need to happen, making sure that there's a dialogue and that all of your communication is not done in one method. It shouldn't be all email because we want to be inclusive, that signaling early looks differently in a car compared to on a bike or on a motorcycle. So thinking about communication strategies that are inclusive for people who like to read, who people who adapt to receiving information audibly. Is it a possible video recording or a voiceover, something that people can listen to, versus having to read a lot of details? The matching the speed in traffic, this is aligning your pace with your team's workflow. If the team is moving quickly on a project, try to keep up. If they're taking more of a measured approach, try to adjust your speed so that you can kind of maintain harmony. If you're working kind of in tandem, it merges better. Like if I'm coming in at 60 miles an hour and the traffic that I'm coming into is in a 35 mile per hour zone, I am probably going to wreak havoc trying to get into traffic and cause more disruptions than if I just slow my pace and kind of merge in and zipper in appropriately. The catch is being intentional about looking for the gaps, looking for the opportunity, identify the opportunity where skill and contribution can fit seamlessly. What other people on your team have the necessary skills to kind of assist with these merging strategies during change management? Who can become an advocate, who can become a go-to person that has subject matter expertise. What are the ways that you can leverage the other driver's strengths to kind of make this whole merging transition easier for everybody else? And then the one I think is most important is staying calm and being patient. Change is never easy. and it does require a heightened level of empathy and emotional intelligence and kind of being very intentional about what we do or what we say, because people are kind of on edge. There's an angst that comes with change, but being calm and staying patient really kind of helps translate, and then it takes time for you to kind of also get different perspectives back in your communication. You may hear or learn of something that you wouldn't have been privy to if you had just kind of talked over somebody or just thought your answer was the final answer. Making sure you find time to get other perspectives, even if they're not going to impact the final destination or the final change management, but at least hearing other perspectives also creates a safer merge environment. Allison, any thoughts on merging?
I just a quote that I have used my whole life. I don't even remember who shared it with me. But it around that stay calm and be patient is, you can't control the traffic. You can only control the way you feel about the traffic. And you've probably all been in those moments where you just want to get there. You just want to get there, and it says that red line on your Waze or GPS is, you've got 30 minutes of standstill traffic and you're out of your mind. Well, that happens in the work world too. And again, if you're feeling frustrated, imagine the people that are working with you on this. So your ability to manage yourself, stay calm and be patient, and then to help others do same, or those who may get stuck or those who may get frustrated, use open lines of communication and constant feedback. What's working well? What could be better? So that people have an outlet to allow them to voice concerns that they have, ask questions that they have, but then also to bring their emotional stress levels down and stay calm.
You talked really nicely about the red lines on the GPS, and I think we've all seen it. We see when it goes from like blue to yellow to red, and they give you timestamps, the traffic jams that come up. And what do we do with traffic jams? Even in the workplace, when things come to a halt, how do we leverage that time? What are some of the strategies that we can use when change management, where nothing is progressing at the moment? And we don't know what to do? I think we look at traffic jam strategies and how we can kind of move those into the workplace and make those pertinent. So when we think about traffic jams, and I think we're on the next slide. Um, Yep. Okay. The key to traffic jams is staying informed. The key is keeping everyone up to date with project statuses or any potential issues. Using tools like project management software, Mondays, Perform Yard, things that kind of keep track of all of the things that are happening are great resources. Planning ahead. So scheduling meetings and deadlines during times where team members are most productive. Avoid overloading the team with tasks all at once. So if there are things that still need to happen, if we plan ahead, even while we're sitting still, how do we use this technically kind of stalled time? I won't call it downtime, but stalled time to still keep things moving. Again, you'll see stay calm and be patient shows up in merging and in traffic jams. But making sure you leverage your safe distance, respecting each other's workspace and workload. Try to avoid micromanaging your team and trust team members to handle their responsibilities. Now, it's key if you notice things are not getting done to kind of bring attention to that and give some constructive feedback and be curious versus accusatory when asking, just to find out if there are other things going on. But making sure your team knows to use their cruise control, establish consistent workflows and process. This is a great time to test your workflows and processes to make sure that they are working, they're efficient. That way, when you kind of pick up your normal pace again, these things are already in progress, and these are all things have all been tested and are working well. The other thing is, I don't know about anybody else, but the thing that really gets under my skin when I'm sitting in traffic and I realize that the situation was on the other side of the road and nothing has happened in the lanes that we're driving in this current direction is the gaper delays. People rubberneck, I think they call it is it rubbernecking?
Rubbernecking. Yeah.
Rubbernecking? Yeah, minimize the rubbernecking because what happens is when you divert your attention to something else that is not pertinent to you, you slow down the momentum behind you. It could be you causing the traffic jam. And I wonder if any of us are the holdups on certain projects that we are part of or collaborating on or change management initiatives. Are we holding up progress because we're concerned about what's happening two, three lanes over or two or three departments over that is not pertinent to the outcome that you're striving to achieve? So I would say minimize the gaper delays. Try not to do too much rubbernecking. Make sure that your tools are well maintained, making sure your car is well maintained. Allison just stated, I came off the road this weekend, possibly going on the road this coming weekend. Yesterday at lunch, I took my car to make sure everything was good, got all my fluids topped off, got my tires rotated, made sure my oil was good, just to make sure that I was well prepared for this weekend's adventure if I decide to take one. Making sure you keep your tools well maintained and functioning properly, your workflows, your systems, your email, your processes, making sure that your employees are well maintained, wellness, making sure they have time off. If it's a slower time, is it a time for people to kind of take a day to rejuvenate, a mental health day, things that can kind of help them come back and be more productive. And then what I've learned in any traffic jam, as long as I have a good playlist or podcast, I can probably sit through anything. As long as I feel like I'm using my mind well and the time is feeling productive. Am I learning something new? Am I listening to a podcast for other workplace initiatives? What am I doing with my time? Am I singing the theme to The Greatest Showman, which is one of my favorite soundtracks? I drive every road trip with at least that entire album. Am I singing at the top of my lungs and having a concert in my car, something that makes me feel good? How am I using the time? So using time productively is also a strategy that I highly recommend.
I want to underscore something I heard you say about planning ahead, and really for any initiative that requires change management. The one that popped to mind when you were going through this row is when, and we work with a lot of organizations going through HRIS transitions. That ability to have a mapped out written plan with clearly defined objectives and timelines and accountabilities listed, who's going to be responsible for doing what, keeps it front of mind. The other thing that we've seen very successful, and whether you're using software, a tool to you to do that, but to have it available so that everybody's working off the same plan and to be able to meet regularly, whether you need it or not, that regular checkpoint, is it weekly, is it bi-weekly, and you plug it in everyone's calendars at the beginning of this initiative, project, change, whatever you're talking about, to allow for updates, questions, answers. It takes the emotion out of, oh, Allison didn't do this, and because Allison didn't do this, we're all backed up. No, it's like, look, I know that I'm going to be accountable for achieving this piece of it. And if there's something that's blocking me from doing it, then it's my job to get ahead of it and leverage the resources or notify the individuals that this may not happen by Friday because of these things. And here's what I'm doing to work around that. So I think that planning piece you can't underscore enough, and having it physically in writing, printed, that you are as a group looking at on a regular basis helps you stay the course and helps you address any of the traffic jams that might pop up unexpectedly.
Great. Agreed.
So what are some of these navigation tools that you use, Ro?
So these are all of the things that we've kind of talked about, like the driving concepts of checking your mirror, signaling early, how they become leadership applications. Checking your mirror is, increasing your self-awareness. Signaling early is communicating proactively. Matching traffic speed is meeting people where they are. Avoiding sudden movements is leading change intentionally. Now, I know there are some times that we can't avoid sudden movements, like, our client whose leader left unexpectedly. That was a sudden move that was unavoidable. But the follow-up of that needs to be leading with intentionality, making sure people are communicated to and often. Yield when needed, know when to listen instead of lead. I think that's my favorite one. Sometimes it is important that even we as leaders take a minute to listen to those around us in both directions, because then it takes the onus of having to have it all figured out. I've found that some of the best road trips happen when we have joint understanding of who's going to do what when, and it's almost like a schedule. Everybody if you've ever been on a good road trip, if you have four people in the car, everybody has assignments. The driver drives, the passenger up front manages the radio, snacks, and all of the things. The people in the back make sure that the passenger has all that they need, and then the person sitting behind the driver is making sure the driver is alert and attended to as well. So everybody understands their roles. It is very important that we take time to listen to the needs of other people, because not everybody's going to need to stop at the same rest stop. Not everybody's going to need to get off at the same exit. Our destination is the same, but our timing may be different. So I think it's very important that we know when to yield. Staying calm and keeping our emotions under pressure is truly a key leadership navigation tool. And using GPS. When is it imperative for you to seek additional mentorship and guidance from someone who either knows the road or has been down this road before? Sometimes the best kept secrets are not the GPS directions, but the person who has experience on the road and can kind of teach you the back way around that 30-minute stretch of traffic jam when you really need to get to where you're going and really don't have time to kind of just sit in traffic, and they know the back roads that'll get you around the delay, because of experience. So kind of leveraging the experience when necessary in addition to mentorship and guidance.
Great. Um, I think my I'm having a traffic jam with my computer today. It's
Oh,
not wanting to do what I want it to do.
there it
There we
is.
go. Here we go. So, how do we put this in an easy step-by-step kind of what we need to do, Ro?
So we think about it, we have to own our own vehicle. We don't need to drive everybody else's vehicle. We don't have to take on everything else around us, especially on our teams. Stop driving everyone else's vehicle. The catch with change management is owning your vehicle, owning your lane, making sure you kind of have that effective driving down, knowing your roles and responsibilities and all of the things that we discussed earlier in the session. Before you change lanes and decide you're going to go off and help another department do something, make sure you signal first. Signal before you shift. Signal before you just kind of, interject yourself into someone else's workflow, project, change management conversation. If you're in finance and you feel like you have insight that you want to share with HR, make sure you signal before you just show up in the HR staff meeting. I'm just saying. Make it safe to change lanes. I'm very sure that you have proximity, that there's psychological safety, that there's conversation that's happening, and you're not going to abruptly change lanes that is either going to have you run into the back of someone or have somebody run into the back of you and create more of a traffic jam or delay, because now we have conflict. Now we have to deal with injury, be it both psychological, emotional, mental, productive injury. Like it can happen if we don't switch lanes safely. The impact can be detrimental and it can be very disruptive. And then redefine what growth looks like. Success is not always getting to the final destination. Sometimes success is navigating the road that you're on. and being able to kind of take the bumps and the bruises and the traffic jams and the merging and do it safely and successfully, that is success. Um, Case in point, I intended to leave Philadelphia Friday at like 1 p.m. to get to North Carolina. Didn't end up leaving until about 7:30 p.m. And didn't arrive in North Carolina until about 4:30 in the morning Saturday. However, every time I got to a rest stop, I took it as a moment of success because after driving, after working and doing things all day, and then still driving and being able to be attentive and focused, it kind of helped me navigate better. So when I finally got to the ultimate destination, that wasn't success. Success was the 176 miles on I-85 in the absolute darkness with the tractor trailers. That was success for me without incident or cause, and with a 10-pound Yorkie who managed to keep his calm, cool composure the entire trip. So that was success. So making sure we redefine what growth and success looks like so people aren't always fixated on the final destination, but on the road trip itself and what it offers.
I think that's a great point, Ro. I also think it gives motivation to the team to celebrate the small wins and the small successes, or making it through a certain stage, or getting to the next space, that just lets them know that you appreciate it, you see the work that they're doing, and that it's all these small things that get us to the finish line, or the destination, or the next phase of the next big piece of everything. So don't let a day go by or a week go by where you're not acknowledging the success of some of the work that's being done.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of giving accolades for progress versus just only looking at outcomes and deliverables. Kind of
Mhm.
applaud people for the progress that they're making as well. Yeah.
Agreed. And we want to leave you with some road-worthy reminders. Bro, you want to walk us through this?
Sure. Growth requires intentional movement, meaning staying in the same lane too long can limit transformation, leadership development, or opportunity. So change is going to happen. Growth and change are synonymous. And if you look at it that way, any change that's coming is an opportunity to grow. So growth requires intentional movements. Emotional intelligence is the GPS of effective leadership. How we regulate our emotions, communicate, and respond under pressure impacts how we guide other people through change. So we want to make sure that our EI is well in tuned, it's up to date. It's the most recent version of GPS, if you will, and making sure that we're leading from a place that is emotionally intelligent and emotionally secure. People don't necessarily resist change as much as they resist uncertainty. So clear communication, trust, psychological safety help people navigate transitions more successfully. It's not that they're reluctant to change. People are very un are uncomfortable with uncertainty. So the more
If I
certain,
Yeah, if I could just add there too, because I think we see this in the work we do frequently, and this can often cause people to get stuck. Um, and you may not have the clear answer. We don't know exactly how we're going to get from step three to step four, but if you can create the process by which we're going to work with each other to get from step three to step four, you're creating more certainty. We're going to check in weekly. If we're going to ask what's working, what's not working, and we're going to make course corrections for us to move from stage three to stage four, because we know this is going to be a tricky one, and we know you don't all have all the information you need right now, neither do we. So let's agree that this will be our process. That can make someone feel a little more comfortable in an uncomfortable world of uncertainty.
yeah. That is very true. The other piece that we want to add to is leaders can guide others without carrying everyone's journey. So this is really about support, coaching, and accountability are powerful, but sustainable leadership also requires boundaries and self-awareness. Like We don't want to take on the entire burden of carrying the entire change management project on one person. That's not sustainable. So making sure that coaching, accountability, support are there, but that also boundaries are established and that there's self-awareness. Because I think number five might be my favorite. Burnout is not a badge of honor. Doing it all and physically exhausting yourself does not mean that you're working or more committed. Rest, relaxation, reflection, recalibration are necessary parts of long-term change management. You have to take time to take care of yourself. It's not sustainable to try to do all of the things all of the time. Um, and then the final thought that we said is success is not the destination. It's an ongoing journey. There is always something to evolve after we get to that next point. What's next? What's coming? What's the new change? What's the area of growth? So the road may include detours and challenges and unexpected turns, but growth comes from learning how to navigate them intentionally and realizing that there's really not a final destination. It's something that's going to continue to grow and evolve, and being okay with that and knowing how to adapt and be flexible.
I love that, Ro. And thank you for sharing your analogy with everybody and for these tips. I think that as we set out at the beginning of this session, change is inevitable and we're in a world of constant change. So we as leaders have to constantly reflect on what we can be doing more of, less of, or differently to help ourselves and to help others navigate these rocky waters. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Certainly, if you have questions, please feel free to post them. If we can't address them today, my contact information, Ro's contact information is here, and we would welcome you reaching out to all of us. We also want to give you a reminder that we have an upcoming webinar on September 15th, the Morning Blend. I think some of you have joined us for this before. This is our quarterly legal and HR update. We never know what's going to be in store, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of helpful tidbits for those of you. And if you can join us in September, we would love to see you. We'll be joined by our partner, Lori Armstrong from Costangi Law Firm. So, on behalf of Ro and myself and Whitney, who's behind the scenes and makes all of this magic happen for us all the time, we want to thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We hope you walk away with a little something in your pocket to help you navigate change moving forward. Hope you enjoy these last few weeks of summer, everybody, and we'll see you in the
Yeah,
fall.
everybody. Take care.
Take care.